grace that you are who you are today. Amen. Amen. It is understood by Christians to be something that's spontaneous. It's a spontaneous gift. Amen. Spontaneous means you're not expecting it. You should not expect it. Amen. God's grace is spontaneous. He's generous with this gift. It's free and totally unexpected and undeserved. Keep that in mind. Whatever God has done in your life, you don't deserve it. It's totally undeserved. Amen. It's so important that we realize that we don't deserve the life we live. And when you're humble and knowing that, God begins to bless you because you give him glory in the fact that you know you don't deserve it. Amen. Amen. That takes the form of divine favor, love, clemency, and a share in the divine life of God. So that's what grace is. It's undeserved. It's just given to you because it's a gift. You don't deserve it. And you know what? Not all people will have God's grace. Amen. Because when you begin to think of things on your own and that you earn this and that you earn that, God will take himself away from the equation. Amen. He'll pull back and he'll show you just what you deserve. Amen. When dealing with grace and trials, that's something, amen, the pastor was telling us about a couple weeks ago. Grace and trials. I'll go into that in a minute. But one writer was talking about a graceful path. Amen. When you allow God to bring you through a situation, it's done with dignity. Amen. When you allow God to go ahead and do what God does, you go through a thing gracefully. Amen. And I'm talking about trials. Gracefully go through your trials. I know sometimes it's not easy. The trial is not easy that you're going through, but God gives a path that's more graceful than the one we have of our own. You know, when we try to take ourselves through a situation, it don't come out so pretty all the time. Amen. When you try to bring yourself out of a situation, it doesn't come out the way you think it should. The Bible tells us in Isaiah 55, 8-9, my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are my ways your ways, saith the Lord. Verse 9, for as the heaven are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than yours, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts. Amen. God knows absolutely everything, and he knows absolutely what's going to happen if you get yourself involved in what it is that he's trying to do, because your ways are not his ways. You don't know why you're going through it, but God knows why you're going through it. You try to bring yourself out of it, then you may not come out of it prosperously. Amen. Amen. Now, I was talking about Apostle's message a couple weeks ago when he was talking about grace, and he explained how our trials we face will remain with us. And I remember I love my husband and I love his preaching. And, you know, I take everything personal. I don't care who gets up to minister to us. You should take it personal. Amen. You should pull out of the message what's for you. And so our pastor was up speaking, and I'm really into the message. And then he said something that made me say, wait, what? He said that grace is given to us by God, and that we need to go through our trials with grace. God has given us the grace to go through it. But then some of the trials just not going to ever go away. And I said, well, he cannot possibly, Lord. I took a minute away from the message, and I said, he cannot possibly be talking about this right here, because I don't want it no more. I expect to leave here today, and it's gone. And the Lord was speaking to me as the pastor was speaking and saying, well, you know what? This trial you're going through is the one that keeps you on your knees. It keeps you praying, and it keeps you going. It keeps you moving in me. Amen. Give God a hand on tonight. Amen. Sometimes you have to take a sidebar conversation with God. Even when you're hearing the word, you take a sidebar conversation and ask God, how does that make me feel good, Lord? I mean, I don't want this trial. I'm done with this trial. And God told me right then as he was preaching, so that I could go ahead and concentrate on the word, he said, well, this is going to be with you until you learn how to successfully go through it. Amen. Amen. And I plan on successfully going through it, even if it never goes away. And I know that sounds, to some people, it may sound kind kind of disheartening that it may never go away, but don't you know that this trial is growing me? Amen. And so one day I'm going to look and not even see it. It don't have to move. It don't have to go anywhere. But I'm going to look and it's going to be so far behind me. Amen. Because I'm going to allow God to grow me in this trial. Amen. And you know, God is getting the glory out of your suffering, and it's time to be elevated to the next trial. If you're still in the same trial from 20 years ago, do you know it's time to be elevated to a new trial? Amen. Just like a graduation, you cannot stay in the 12th grade always. You got to move on to your freshman level of college and then go on to be a sophomore and so forth. Amen. You have to elevate yourself, and God gives you trials, and he gives you trials of elevation. So if you still have the same trial that you had 20 years ago, that means you haven't learned your lesson. Amen. And he can't move you. He can't elevate you. He can't give you the growth you need from this trial to be able to handle the next trial. Amen. Amen. God gives us trials. God knows best. The topic is God knows best. He gives us trials that will grow us because he knows the next trial, you're going to need a lesson from this trial. Amen. So you have to be elevated. Yes, trials will elevate you. Amen. They come to make you strong. Trials come to make you strong. 1 Corinthians 10:13, there hath no temptation taken you, but such as common to man. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that you're able, but will with that temptation also make a way to escape, that you may be able to bear. Amen. God gives you certain situations that you feel like you're unable to bear, but he gives you the grace, he gives you the ability. He will never put more on you than you can bear. Amen. And we want to put the cart before the horse all the time. Amen. We want to come out of situations before you learn the lesson that you were supposed to learn. And just being a school teacher, we teach addition in order to get to multiplication. And so I start out with my students in second grade teaching addition, and then I'll move them to subtraction and then multiplication and division. My God is like pulling teeth to teach a second grader to divide. But I had to start with addition. Okay, and so when I think about my students, I think, how can I get them to division or to multiplication without first teaching them to add? Amen. And that's what God is telling us. How am I going to get you where you need to be if you didn't get what you needed in the beginning? Amen. That's what God is trying to tell us. He needs you to learn this from this trial so that when you get to this one, you'll have something to bounce back from. Amen. To relate to. Amen. And so I like for my students to get that aha moment when I give them to multiplication and they say, oh, Miss Murray, if I want to know what 4 times 4 is, I can say 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4. Amen. That's how they learn. When we were learning multiplication, you just better learn that chart. You better learn that multiplication chart. Amen. But children need to know why this matters in this situation. And that's what God is doing with us. He tells you why this matters in this situation. So don't try to put the cart before the horse because you want to come out when you want to come out. Amen. You're meant to stay in that thing until you get the lesson that you were supposed to learn, and then God will move you on into the next trial. Amen. You will be elevated to your next trial. Amen. Amen. In the same trial today that you were in 20 years ago is redundant. When you think about it, that means God is saying, you're not learning. You're in the same trial as you were 20 years ago. Let's even say if you're in the same trial a year ago, if you're in the same trial that you were in a year ago, think about it. You're not learning anything from that situation. Not that God is not moving you out of it, but now if you're still at the beginning of that trial, the beginning of that trial is, Lord, why me? You should have gone to a point where you're saying, okay, Lord, this is my situation. Now help me deal with it. If you haven't gotten to that point in your trial, that means you haven't learned what it is that God is trying to teach you. Romans 8:28, and we know that all things work together for the good of them who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. Okay, no matter what your situation is, God knows how to bring you out. If you continue to try to bring yourself out, then you're going to continue to go around that same mountain over and over and over and over again. Amen. We've all done it before. Yours may not be as bad as mine, or mine may not be as bad as yours, but we've all done it before. Amen. Where we didn't really learn what it is that God was trying to teach us because we were trying to do it ourselves. But tell your neighbor, God knows best. Let God do the God thing. Amen. And you do what you're supposed to do, which is pray.